As the war widens in West Asia, Iran has released fresh visuals of its missile attack on Israel, the U.S. bases and Gulf countries. These are the images of the moment of firing the Fatah-2 missile in what Iran calls Operation Sadek Promise 4. Fatah-2, Iran's most advanced hypersonic missile, Fatah-2 has made its debut in the ongoing war against Israel. The missile is a better version of the original Fatah-1, featuring a hypersonic glide vehicle warhead designed to evade modern air defense systems through high-speed maneuverability. Fatah-2 is capable of reaching terminal velocities between Mach 13 and Mach 15. It has a range of approximately 1,400 to 1,500 kilometers, placing targets across West Asia, including Israel and U.S. regional bases within its reach. It carries an explosive warhead of roughly 200 kilograms. Iranian state media has also released footage purporting to show scores of attack drones stockpiled in an underground bunker. The video shows a long tunnel with no visible end, lined with numerous drones and missiles. It first displays triangular-shaped drones lined up in one direction, resembling the Shahed-136, a domestically developed Iranian kamikaze drone. The ceiling of this tunnel is adorned with the Iranian national flag. The footage also captures missiles in standby mode, with 4 missiles mounted per launcher vehicle. A photo of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, was confirmed dead following the previous day's airstrike, a scene hanging on the wall. The video further includes scenes of drones and missiles being launched. Drones are a core component of Iran's attack capabilities following the joint Israel-US airstrike. On the 28th of last month, Iran conducted retaliatory strikes using ballistic missiles and drones against targets in Israel, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait. Nader Hashemi is Associate Professor of Middle East and Islamic Politics at Georgetown University. Mr. Hashemi, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for your time. What do you think this war, or what direction do you think this war will take going forward?
Well, it looks like we're headed to escalation. I just saw the remarks that President Donald Trump has made at the White House. And he sounded like this is going to be a very long, protracted war, and the United States is not going to stop until it has achieved its war aims, which now seem to be no longer regime change, but degrading and destroying all of Iran's military capabilities. So I think we're still in the early phases of this war.
Early phases of this war. The president did also indicate that he's going to take... he's not going to be bored by this war. He's actually saying that they will spend at least 4 to 5 weeks in Iran. He says that the campaign in Iran still continues. This campaign, or this operation, is called Epic Fury. Do you think he will meet his objectives and Israel as well?
Well, yes, but let's be clear on what those objectives are. Those objectives are to destroy and collapse the Iranian state, to turn Iran into another Libya, Lebanon, or Syria, where the state no longer has the ability to project power beyond its borders, and it has difficulty controlling territory within its borders. So that's the objective. It's an objective that's meant to secure and advance Western interests and critically Israeli interests in the broader Middle East. Those things are basically the same at this moment. And Iran has, at least for 4 decades, if not more, stood opposed to American and Israeli interests in the Middle East. So I think that's the primary objective. And as Trump said, it's going to take a long time to reach those objectives. So that's what I think is going on.
Mr. Hashemi, the president also did indicate that he wants Iranians to go and voice out their anger against the regime and to also topple the regime. Do you actually think it will be easy for America and Israel to change the whole regime in Iran?
The answer is no. That's wishful thinking. I think that's mostly propaganda to try and couch this brutal act of war and aggression in a language that is connected to the legitimate emancipatory demands of the Iranian people. If you study this topic, the question of regime change through military action, there's very little evidence historically to suggest that a deeply entrenched authoritarian regime has been toppled because of an external air campaign. There's just no evidence. It just doesn't work, and it doesn't work if you just think about it for a moment. In order to topple a regime that's authoritarian and that has a lot of power, you need an alternative ground force on the ground that can challenge the regime and win battles and take over. That doesn't exist in Iran right now. So all of this talk of regime change, leaving aside the illegality of it from an international law perspective, is fanciful thinking, and it's, I think, a propaganda ploy by the Trump administration to give a veneer of legitimacy and morality to this very cold and brutal war that Donald Trump has unleashed on Iran, specifically the people of Iran.
Mr. Hashemi, there has been talk about diplomacy and de-escalation coming in from European Union countries, including Germany, including France. They are all calling for de-escalation. Even the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen did call for de-escalation, and they're all urging diplomacy. But Iran says we are not willing to resume the talks with the United States. We are not going to talk to the United States anymore. Do you think there will be a chance of diplomacy in the near future?
Look, let me answer your question by saying I'm a strong critic of this authoritarian regime in Iran that has brutally suppressed its people for a long time. But I've read all of those statements from these European leaders after the war began. And with a few exceptions, all of the major countries, Germany, England, and many other members of the European Union, and of Canada as well, and of Australia, have been cheering this war on, have been effectively echoing Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's talking points. So their call for diplomacy now and de-escalation really doesn't match their rhetoric. Norway actually is the one outlier. They issued a very principled statement rooted in international law, but none of the main countries in Europe have been a voice of reason or of decency at this horrific moment. So their call for diplomacy and de-escalation, I think, doesn't sound very convincing to me. And let's not forget that the United States, for the second time, I want to emphasize, for the second time in the midst of negotiations with Iran, chose to launch a war of aggression. And rather than calling out the United States for its blatant act of aggression, you have these European leaders effectively cheerleading. And now that things are getting out of control, as we see the war spreading, they're calling for de-escalation and diplomacy. So I don't take anything that these leaders say very seriously. I think they're in many ways part of the problem, not the solution.